We saw sharks once, I think about the second day, and there was one Japanese seaman we could only construe. He was off one of the oil tankers laying on a bit of wood, or tied onto a bit of wood, badly burnt. He was all quite a ways from us. He was well enough to recognise who he was. And we'd seen a few fins of sharks come in near us and just slapped the water and they disappeared. But next thing there was a flurry in the water over there and a bit of blood. The bit of wood had turned over and he was gone.
Drinking the Jap's blood, what we killed. That's what we tried to do. The guy we had on this raft, they cut him up and tried to drink his blood. But again, it's not very nice. But it wets your lips. I think the worst period for me was listening to these guys screaming out at night in terror. This happened every night. They'd be shouting, "Help me, help me." That's my worst nightmare.
The first ones that died, they got a proper funeral service. But when it came down to the numbers were diminishing, it was desperate, everyone was losing strength. Whoever was nearest would possibly just close his eyes and push them off.
I think there must have been 20 of us together. And as time went on, as they died, we just pushed them off and put another one on. And that's how it carried on. And when we finished, there was 3 of us left. My mate went. And all he said to me was, "Barney, I'm sorry. Tell me, Dad, I'm sorry." I don't think we could have lasted much longer.
On September the 15th, the USS Pampanita returned to the scene of the convoy attack to survey wreckage. What happened next was filmed by one of the crew, electrician's mate Paul Pappas, who died in 1997, and also by Joe Bates aboard the Sealion, which was called to the area.
I was the ship's photographer, and this was an unusual event. None of us had ever participated in anything like this, so I thought it was worth photography, and I just began shooting. I haven't thought about this in a long time. This brings back a lot of memories. They were a mess. I've never seen human beings who looked so woeful as they did. I would guess about half of them couldn't see.
We would just pull them up from the bow planes, but if they couldn't get to them, well, one or the other of us would swim out and bring them in.
It was so pathetic. What mankind can do to mankind, that was just horrible. These poor guys, my heart just went out to them, all covered with oil, and yet their dauber was up, and you know, you sink us one day and you come back and pick us up, you bloody bloke. So somebody shot that.
As they were passing them up to us on deck, we were wiping them off with mineral spirits. And when we ran out of mineral spirits, we actually used hydraulic oil. But it got rid of that thick, heavy 6 oil that they had all over them.
My job at that time was lowering them down the hatch to the next guy. Some of them, their flesh would actually start peeling off. I never expected half of them that I took down that hatch to survive anyway.
After rescuing everyone in sight, the submarine Pampanito, with 73 survivors on board, headed at full speed for the recently captured island of Saipan, where American doctors were waiting. However, the crew of the Sealion, which had been operating a search 10 miles to the northeast, were still busy hauling men out of the water, including Wilf Barnett.
I tried to swim to the sub, and they shouted, "No, get back on the raft." And it was unbelievable, the sensation to know that we were going to be saved, because by then our tongues, we couldn't talk. We were trying to shout to these guys, we were waving, doing everything we could. And to think that, all right, I mean, Japanese, if they'd have picked it up, it wouldn't have made a difference. We'd have been happy.
We were lying dead in the water, and that's a terrible thing for a submarine to do, because you're just totally vulnerable. The skipper, he had a terrible decision to make. He just said, that's all. I can still hear one guy yelling at us, over here, over here, over here, wanting us to come over there and pick him up. He could see, apparently, that there was a rescue underway, and of course he wanted to be rescued, and we didn't. We left the poor guy, and I'm sure he died.
I tell you, it hurt me very much. I never really knew why we left, you know. I never knew why the decision was made to leave. I was no authority to say it to the bridge, but we got more room, you know, we got more room, and that's the way I felt.
I don't know that we could have done a lot more anyway, you know. We're limited to how many people we can take on board. There were so many of them out there, they'd need a big ship to take everybody on board. There was, what, 1,300 or something like that, they said, in the water.
I felt pretty bad that we couldn't have gotten there earlier. It just made me sad that we couldn't have brought all of them back home, you know.
Ray Wheeler was one of those left behind.
We were against the skyline. We could see them quite clearly. Bill Smith, the big tall man, he'd secured an oar and he tied his shirt to it, and he was sitting on the Carly float waving that oar and singing out, over here, and we were saying, they'll never hear, and it was obvious they couldn't hear us. And when they motored off, you heard the motors start, and they went off and just disappeared. He said, he threw the oar in the water, and he said, if there's a God in heaven, he didn't hear my prayers.
On Ray Wheeler's fourth night adrift, the weather closed in.
Come dark, the waves got bigger and bigger, and we realised we were in for a mighty blow of some sort. We didn't know that it was a typhoon that we were part of. We were in 30, 40-foot waves. You'd be down the bottom at one second, and the next thing you'd just, this surge, you'd come up with a surge to the top, but you'd only be there about a brief second, and down you'd go again. This went on all night.
The USS Queenfish and USS Barb had steamed 450 miles to resume the search.
That fifth day was a bit disappointing that we never saw anyone, and come the sixth morning, the Barb and the Queenfish that had been called up by the first two, and they'd come down looking for us. And we learnt later on that they'd seen us early in the morning